Hello, everyone. This is Shauna, and I'm here today with another video in the Bob and Nikki series discussion. This week, we're up to book 9 in the series. This is the Kindle cover. This is Secret Squirrels by Jerry Boyd. It's book 9, as I mentioned. And in this book, we focus a lot on the technological aspects of Bob's crew and his ship, and now they're in deep space. We've had the issue in the last book of what to do about them. The squirrels have become known, and it's become known that they sabotaged the Commonwealth. So Bob is now going through and deciding what he should do with this knowledge that he has. We also meet a lot of new bots in this installment, but the installment opens with additional ships that fly home with Taz and Willem. Those other characters happen to be squirrels, and he finds out that they have um, representative secret agents in various parts of space. They have sabotaged the ration packs in the Commonwealth, leaving behind two ingredients that are essential to cognitive functioning. And by making the cognitive functioning of people somewhat less, makes them more suggestible to not exploring squirrel space, and in fact, exploring in the direction away from squirrel space, and in a sort of convoluted logic, keeping the peace without using force. That's sort of how they rationalize it. Um, there's also a piece of technology that the squirrels have in all the Commonwealth comms that allows them to be tracked. And so there's another whole piece to that. The squirrels, as I mentioned, continue to pick up a fight. There are various squirrels that Bob catches in this installment. And like I said, we have concluded that the squirrels want to destroy the gene. A group of them had basically been recruited to go on what amounted to a suicide mission to try and stir up Bob and the crew against the squirrels, to give the squirrels a rationale to retaliate. And of course, Bob, being the captain of the badass fleet in that part of space, uh, gives them a show, but doesn't hurt them at all. And so they remove all the charges that are meant to damage the gene, and they have a battle where the squirrels negotiate a false surrender. And meanwhile, on the ship, Bob and the crew are making furious attempts to decipher all the squirrel tech and figure out what's going on. And this is one of the parts where, just in terms of plot issues, I really like how books proceed, because you can really see the respect for different species here, which is kind of a foil for different different races, different ethnicities. It's definitely diversity and inclusion at work, but it's very organic and very well woven into the plot. It doesn't feel forced. Sometimes the interaction is a bit cheesy, but you really do have a sense that there's an organically growing respect around the ship, and there's an organic growth that takes place with the characters. Um, And so there's a lot of squirrel prisoners on board, and Bob tries to get information from them, which is where we confirm that the cartel is at work and that so the new plan is for them to deliver the prisoners to the home system. Joshua, the Bob's squirrel neighbor from Earth, remember, who is in a human form, decides to go into the auto dock again and get his squirrel nose back. So he's going to go into the space and take the prisoners back and try to negotiate uh, their release, not release, I'm sorry, their bond, like their bounty. Um, in other news, Zoom and Diego get married in this installment. Grandma Kachi, who was rescued from Shady Oaks, comes aboard the crew, and it turns out she's quite the Spitfire, like Delilah Mayfield, Dinkus's wife. So they get together, and the two of them get christened the Gun Grannies by Bob. So anytime you hear the Gun Grannies in future volumes, that's Delilah Mayfield and Diego Cachi's grandma. We also have a whole um, kind of side trip with Janet and Jane Brenham, because Janet continues to suffer from PTSD from the planet, and she doesn't want to get therapy because she doesn't feel like it's helping. So Bob tries to convince her to stay in treatment and to also get treated in the auto doc, and she does that. And then toward the end of the book, we have um, Bob and the crew finally make it into Squirrel Space. They are met by Major Rookie, who's a little bit surly, like Major Rodham of the Commonwealth. But Major Rookie um, is not interested in um, changing his opinion of the monkeys, and so um, he gets into it with Bob's crew, and it turns out that Major Rookie had been committing sexual misconduct with Lackey's aunt, and Lackey's aunt gives them some information, and they end up, because they aren't in Bob's jurisdiction, for Bob to take justice into his own hands. What the crew of the Gene Cernan decides to do is um, give him the treatment that he deserves by finding evidence of his misconduct and broadcasting that out of the ship when they leave. So the Squirrel Home World has no choice but to hear that, because it gets not piped out of their ship directly, but put into these drone devices that play it regardless of how much they try to stop it. And toward the end of the book, as we're winding things up, we meet a couple of other characters too. We have a couple of very old bots in this installment. We have A1, who's going to be called Saucy, who gets in on a lot of strategy meetings. From here on out, we have A192, who becomes known as Night Deuce, and will be working with Pete in some of the later books. And then we have Jackie an androgynous bot. So we again have an effort at representation. And Jackie will have more roles to play as the books continue. And we have Jasmine, who comes and tells Bob that a lot of the bots are disappointed because they can't get close to Bob as much as some of the other bots, and they want to have names. So there's concern for equality and autonomy. And one of the strengths of these books, I think, is how they weave that in a story that isn't necessarily about that, but their elements are definitely there. And I just think that it's really well done. We have, as I mentioned, A192, we have A1 who's saucy, and then we have C76, CISO, an old bot that the crew finds aboard the ship. But as I said, I think the major strength of this volume is in just building the cohesion and continuing to build out the crew and giving Bob. This becomes a section of a greater space adventure sort of thing, kind of like a cross between a sci-fi novel and a video game. And we're going to continue in the next episode of the series with more of the aftermath of this event and another book about squirrels and the effects on the Commonwealth. But until my next video and until our next installment, if you've been following along and reading along with these summaries of the shows and enjoy hearing my thoughts, because I'm really enjoying going back over these and meeting the characters again and seeing how they grow together and how they find themselves and how they have such interesting stories about how they come aboard. Whenever you have a new species or a new crewman come aboard who doesn't know what's going on, you have a lot of kind of rehashing of the stories, and everybody has interesting stories, and yet you see how they all work together. And that's one of the things that I enjoy about reading these books, because you know that people are going to make mistakes and there's going to be some stakes, not super high stakes most of the time, but even when the stakes are high, like they're going to get out of it, but you're going to find that people have roles and people are allowed to kind of grow into them, and there's a lot of room for improvement. And I really think that the world could use more insight into that. But I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you, Lord willing, again next week for episode number 10. Take care, be safe, stay warm, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now.